When we're young, we have an amazing, positive outlook about how great life is going to be, but somewhere along the line, we forget to dream and end up settling. Join Up Dots features amazing people who refuse to give up and chose to go after their dreams. This is your blueprint for greatness. So here's your host, live from the back of his garden in the UK, David Ralph.
Yes, hello there world, how are we? Welcome to episode 116 of Join Up Dots. There's one word that's been coming into my head all day today, and that is dedication, dedication. And if you grew up in the United Kingdom in the 1970s, that will mean a lot to you. Anybody else on earth, it means nothing at all. But the reason I'm saying that word is we've got a Guinness Book of Records world holder with us today. He's a globetrotter with a story based on constant action. An adventurer, filmmaker, travel blogger and TV presenter from Liverpool. In 2009, he crossed the River Plate into Uruguay, and so began the Odyssey Expedition, the first official Guinness World Record attempt to visit every sovereign state on planet Earth without flying. And that's 193 members of the United Nations, a staggering 201 international borders crossed by foot, bus, taxi, train, ship, canal, canoe, camel, whatever you think. As long as it didn't fly, he was on it. So no planes, no helicopters and no hot air balloons. And along the way, he self-filmed and presented the TV show Graham's World for the National Geographic Adventure channel and raised funds for the registered charity WaterAid. So what is it that made him leave the comfort and security of a life in the north of England to travel the globe in the hardest manner possible? And are there any countries that once he arrived, he thought, right, I'm not staying here, time to move on? Oh, and did I tell you he's now the owner of his own island, Ginger Island? I love that name, Ginger Island, which he won in a competition too. So is he the luckiest guy on earth, or just someone that by taking huge action has put himself into positions that others would miss out on? Well, let's find out as we bring onto the show the one and only Ginger Scouser himself, Mr. Graham Hughes. How are you, Graham?
Hello, I'm very good. I should say hola, because I'm speaking to you from Panama today.
Is that where Ginger Island is? Because I was trying to work out where Ginger Island was.
It's in the Caribbean. It's just it's in the northwest corner of Panama, and just by Bocas del Toro. It's about 20 minutes from the town on a boat, and it's a little 2.2 acre island. I've got a coral reef out one end of the island. I've got a mangrove forest out the other, and I'm just on the entrance to Dolphin Bay, and it's called that because you're not going to believe this. It's full of dolphins. And it's a real sweet life at the moment. It really is. But that's me now. But we're going to talk a little bit about my journey first, I think.
Yeah, we are. So the question that's just popped into my head with, that many dolphins, you're never ever hungry then, I assume.
No, they're great actually with baked beans. Oh no, I didn't mean that. I meant that they buy me dinner. That's right. Yeah.
So is it just you on the island with a beach ball Wilson or something, or have you got some slaves and people looking after your every need?
Slaves? No, it's just me on the island at the moment. I've got a coconut with a face that I've drawn on it. That's my friend Wilson. I've also got a dog. I've got a dog called Campesino, and I've got 13 chickens. And I've named all the chickens, and the locals make fun of me for naming the chickens because apparently you're not supposed to name chickens in case you have to eat them. But then I just think of that Simpsons episode where he's eating his lobster called Pinchy, and he's crying as he eats it. I think that's what I suppose I'll have to do one day, one of these chickens, if they don't stop coming up the stairs and pooing all over it. Grrr, naughty chickens.
It's so weird here, and my brain is like splitting into different ways because on one hand you're like a Robinson Crusoe character, and then you're talking about the Simpsons and things like that. So do you actually kind of, do you have connectivity? Obviously we're talking on Skype, which kind of freaks me out. First of all, I don't really understand how that works. But do you sit there with Netflix on your island and do things like that?
Yes, and I keep up to date with Game of Thrones and 24 and anything else. I'm pretty online here. I like the idea of sort of being off the grid, but still online. I've got solar panels for my electricity. I collect rainwater for my drinking water. So, I do need gas. I need to go into town every couple of weeks or so to get a new bottle of gas for the cooker and the hot shower. But apart from that, I'm pretty self-sufficient.
So let's kind of just get to the point with Ginger Island. First of all, I assumed you named Ginger Island. It wasn't just a complete fluke that it has the same name to your hair colouring.
No, I named it Ginger Island. There's ginger like ninja, so it's Jinja.
And what was it named beforehand, or was it not named anything?
It didn't really have a name, and the guy who took care of the island before me, Ian Usher, who was the guy who famously sold his life on eBay a few years ago. I'm sure you'll have him on Join Up the Dots one day. He's a proper character, and he's a fellow northerner. He went around the world doing 100 goals in 100 days. When he put the island on the market, he called it Usher's Island because his name was Ian Usher. But then everyone thought that it was like the pop star Usher, and it got a bit confused. So when I turned up, I thought, well, I can call it whatever I want, really. It doesn't really matter. And so I decided to call it Ginger Island, and gingerisland.com was available. Which always, I think there's a lot of bands out there that would have called themselves something different had the .com been available, but they sort of just go, oh, hang on, let's get something that the .com's available for. So that's what happened with Ginger Island. Kind of let's get this, and it's kind of, I don't know, it's kind of captured people's imaginations a little bit, which is great.
It is, because instantly you can see that you're a guy who likes fun. And that says it, doesn't it? Ginger Island. It's just kind of an amusing name. I even laughed when I read it in the introduction, and I've been looking at it all week. It still makes me laugh.
Well, yeah, and actually, Ginger is spelled like that. Is actually a town on the beginning of the Nile in Uganda, and I went through it on my adventure. And I remember looking at it on the map, going, "Wow, this place is called Ginger, and it's spelled like ninja, but it's Ginger." And I met up with a fellow backpacker traveler type in Las Vegas when I was there a few months ago, and he had all these old maps of the world, these antique maps, and he had one for Africa, and it was around the time of Isaac Newton, and it actually had the kingdom of Ginjiro right in the center of Africa where Uganda is today, and the king was called the Bomber of Ginjiro, which I quite like. So I took it upon myself to call myself the Bomber of Ginger Island, until someone pointed out to me that the Spanish, in Spanish, bomber means water pump, which isn't that sexy a name, really. Hey, I'm the water pump of this island. Yeah. Yeah, the locals look at me a bit funny.
I wouldn't mind being called a water pump. It depends on who's calling it.
I prefer king, emperor, lord, master.
So are you actually... Are you actually those? Can you name yourself a king, or is there rules to stop you doing that?
Well, I'm sure I'm still under the law of Panama, and if I break the law, I'll go to a Panamanian jail. But yeah, I suppose there's nothing stopping me from declaring my little empire in the mangroves here. I think that'd be quite fun. That's something that will probably progress throughout the year that I'm on this island, because I'm here till next May. So I'm hoping to do some fun things with it while I've got it.
Well, it's fascinating. It really is. But let's take you right back to Liverpool. So when you was a kid in Liverpool, the life you've got now, was it the furthest thing from your mind, or was there always that kind of adventurous spirit to you?
I've always had that adventurous spirit. I was born in 1979, so I totally grew up with Indiana Jones and that sort of spirit of adventure. I remember seeing The Last Crusade at the cinema when I was 10 years old. And we, as a family, we used to go on camping holidays out to Wales, rambling around Wales, and also onto the continent during the summer holidays. We went around France and Spain. And at the time, in the 80s, you couldn't get to half of Europe. It's hard to imagine now when you've got EasyJet and Ryanair flying you over to anywhere you want for 20 quid. But in the 80s, you literally could not go to Hungary. You couldn't go to Czechoslovakia. You couldn't go to Poland without visas, which are very expensive and very difficult to get. And, people would want to know why you were going behind the Iron Curtain and all this kind of stuff. And I remember, I think it was about 1988 or something, we were in West Germany in this camper van. And my dad wanted to go over to East Germany. He wanted to try and get to Berlin. And they turned us around at the border, but we sort of went over the border to do a U-turn, and that was very exciting. That felt like I was in forbidden territory almost. And in the summer of 1990, so this is just about 6 months after the the Berlin Wall had come down, we went on a trip to Berlin, to Germany. I went to East Germany for the first time in my life, and I've still got my piece of the Berlin Wall, because back then you could get a little hammer and chisel away at the wall. I've still got it in a little box at home. And then we went on into Hungary, Czechoslovakia, Poland. So when my friends were coming back from holiday, in Ibiza or Tenerife or somewhere, like, oh, where did you go on holiday? And I was like, I went to Czechoslovakia. And they're like, could you even spell Czechoslovakia? And I'm like, nope, but I've been there. And sort of that experience at a young age really started up my wanderlust of wanting to go and see the world for myself and taking as many countries as I could. So as soon as I was old enough to strap a backpack on my back and head out there, I went on a 5-nation tour of the Middle East from Egypt to Turkey with a couple of friends of mine in uni. And then after university, I worked for a few months just to save up some money and spent a year traveling around the world. And I traveled around India on my own and Southeast Asia. I met up with my then girlfriend in Australia, and we traveled around Australia for 2 months together in a car, an old Holden panel van, which was just amazing. Went to New Zealand, went to South America. And that experience really just solidified my love of travel. And also, I'm pretty academic. I'm good at trivia and stuff like that, but I'm not very sporty. I'm not very athletic. I'm not very good at football and running and stuff like that. But what I am really good at is kind of like logistics and sleeping on buses and not getting ill. And those are things that are really, really important if you're going to go traveling around the world. I mean, when I did the Odyssey Expedition, the whole expedition took 4 years. And in those 4 years, I went to every country in the world on my own, on a shoestring budget, on public transport. And I didn't get ill. I didn't get ill once. I didn't get dysentery. I didn't even get sort of an upset tummy. I was fine, and it was partly because I got loads of vaccinations before I left, obviously, because I'm not an idiot, and also I took my anti-malaria pills and things like that. But mosquitoes don't seem to bite me too much, and maybe I'm just really, really lucky. But as well as not getting ill, I didn't get mugged. I didn't get robbed. I didn't get beaten up or in a fight or in any particular situation that I didn't feel like I could handle, except in a couple of cases in Africa, which we'll come to later, when I got into trouble with the law. But with just general people, the general public, they just seemed to go out their way to be lovely to me and help me on my way. And that was really, one thing that the journey did do is really reaffirm my faith in humanity.
But I think that's true, though, Graham. I think that 99, or probably not 99%, at least 95% of the world population are lovely, and then probably 3% are not lovely, and 2% are serial killers. And I think basically I don't
think the serial killer ratio is that high, but yeah, I get what you mean.
It's got to be pretty high, isn't it? You've
got to be very unlucky. No, I mean, most of them become politicians, so I mean, you can spot them a mile away. But I think that's right, and I think that we kind of misjudge the dangers of traveling the world, and I know that I would never give someone advice of just go out there, and I always say, do your research, make sure you know what you're getting yourself into. Make sure there's a great section in the guidebooks that says dangers and annoyances, and it'll list the things, the places that you don't go and things like that, and maybe some local culture things that you shouldn't local taboos that you shouldn't transgress. So I mean, there's a few sort of base rules that you need to travel, but once you get out there and you sort of you know what you're in for, I think most people are kind of surprised by the lack of hassle that they get in most places. I mean, obviously, if you go to very touristy areas, if you go to the Taj Mahal in India or you go to the pyramids in Egypt, you're going to get a lot of hassle off people, touts and things wanting to sell you. But I mean, that's just part and parcel of the travel experience. And what's funny is if you read sort of Herodotus from like 2,000 years ago, this Greek traveler who traveled around the then known world and wrote about it, he complains about the touts outside the pyramids, and that was 2,000 years ago. So I don't think anything's going to change there particularly soon. But what can I say? I enjoy travel. I knew that I could do this thing, and I found out no one had done it before. And in the end, it took a few years before I got off my butt and did it, but I got it done.
It is astonishing though that there's so many countries, first of all, because I've got an O-level in geography, and I've been looking at the list of countries that you've been to. I'll be honest, there's quite a few that I don't recognise. So did you have any of that situation where you sort of like, right, okay, I've got 201 countries to do, I've got 200, and oh yes, I've done it. And you go home and you sit on your sofa and somebody phones up and says, there's another country, it's just been formed, you've got to jump. And have you had to go back out to any places because a new country's sprung up?
Yeah, kind of. I mean, first of all, I don't even have an O-level or a GCSE in geography. For some reason, we weren't allowed to do both history and geography in school for an actual qualification level. So I chose history, and so I have no qualifications in geography, but I can draw a map of the world from memory, which I think should give me at least an honorary A-level or something. I don't know. But yeah, as far as sort of new countries are concerned, when I started the journey, there were only 192 members of the United Nations. So Sudan was one country, and after the first 2 years of my travels, I thought that I'd be finished in 2 years. I then never thought it would take so long. After the first 2 years, I've been to 184 of the world's countries, and I only had 16 at the time left, and all of them were islands in the Pacific Ocean and the Indian Ocean, and they're notoriously difficult to get to because of there's not too many ships going to Nauru. And also the Maldives and the Seychelles are both within the Somali pirate zone, the Somali pirate region. Anyway, in January 2011, I knew it was going to happen, but I thought that I would have finished my journey by then. South Sudan had an election, a referendum for independence, and it was like 99% said they wanted independence. And so in July 2011, South Sudan became a country. And at this point, I've been to every country in mainland Africa, which is over 50 countries, and I was like, oh, well, I've got to go back. But the way things ended up, my original plan was to start in Uruguay, go through South America, Caribbean, North America, go across the Atlantic to Iceland and Europe, and then go down the west coast of Africa, up the east coast, through the Middle East, through Central Asia, to China, Southeast Asia, and then down to Papua New Guinea, Australia, and then the Pacific Islands, and then finish in New Zealand. And that would make a lovely sort of sine wave across the world. If you got a map out, you could just draw it in a straight line. It'll look fantastic. Well, not a straight line, but a curvy line. Actually doing it wasn't as simple as that. I had to backtrack a lot. I had to return to countries I'd already been to. I mean, I went to 200 countries. I went to 70 of them twice or more than twice. I think I went to Australia in the end about 7 times, just because the shipping routes just went that way. And so I found myself in New Zealand, which was supposed to be the end of my journey. And there were 7 countries, including South Sudan, that I still hadn't visited. And they were Nauru, which is a tiny potato-shaped island in the Pacific, with a population of 7,000 people. But it has a seat on the United Nations. There's the Federated States of Micronesia, which is a bit bigger. It's several islands. And there's Palau, which I think only became an independent state in, I don't know, 1991 or something like that. And then there was Sri Lanka, which is remarkably difficult to get to from India, which is ridiculous. You could probably swim.
Yeah, it's India close, isn't it? It's really close.
to Sri Lanka. It is
could throw a
very
cricket
close
ball
indeed.
across.
But since the Tamil rising of the early 80s, you've seen the deterioration of relations between India and Sri Lanka, and there used to be for over a century there was a ferry that used to go across from India to Sri Lanka, but that stopped in the early 80s, and it's never restarted. I don't know if any of the listeners here have been to India, but if I just start talking about Indian bureaucracy, if they've ever had to go and get an Indian visa or had to buy a train ticket in India, they'll know what I'm talking about. So you can imagine that. And Sri Lankan bureaucracy is not too different. It's not too dissimilar. So then to try and get on a cargo ship from Sri Lanka to India or vice versa is just a nightmare. But in the end, I had to do it because I was in Sri Lanka. I got that far. I was kind of stuck there for a couple of months because none of these cargo ships would take me to the Maldives because Somali pirates pretty much, stop play. They meant that if I did get on board a ship, the excess on the insurance, the anti-piracy insurance, would go through the roof, or they might just not have space for me on the lifeboat because of the added security that they have on board. They sometimes have like 4 armed guards on board these ships now. And it was just lucky that there was a shipping company, a cruise ship company, that was going down from the Mediterranean to Australia, and they were going India, Maldives, Seychelles. So Maldives and Seychelles were countries 199 and 200, and then it was going to Madagascar. So I managed to catch myself a lift on that, hitchhiked the ride.
Did you not have to pay?
No, I didn't pay for any of my excursions on boats.
Can I ask you a question in this then? Because there's a chap that we both know. I know him through the show, but you've actually slept with him, called Niall Doherty. Okay. And
Niall. Yeah, it cost him like £5,000 or something, didn't it?
Yeah, why did it cost him so much? Because I said to him,
I don't know.
Why didn't you just fly across and not tell anyone? He said, because I would know. I had to do it. And I said, surely you could just, offer to sweep the floor or something and not have to pay. But no, it cost him about $4,500 to get on a boat, and you did it for nothing.
Yeah, I know. I feel a bit cheeky about that. But then this cruise ship that I got on that took me to the Maldives and Seychelles, Niall got on it after me because it actually went to Sri Lanka afterwards. I went to Sri Lanka, I think, and he managed to get to Sri Lanka in time, and he took it to Thailand, and he didn't have to pay. He sorted something out with them, some advertising or something. So there were ways around it. I don't know why Niall spent so much money on that boat. I think it was maybe Hobson's choice or something. Maybe he spent a long time.
But you laughed in his face when you heard.
I didn't laugh in his face. I just chuckled to myself that he spent so much on a cargo ship. But yeah, the big cargo ship companies like PIL, who operate out of Singapore, Maersk, who operate out of Denmark, CMA CGM, who operates out of France, they were just fantastic. They were just so supportive and really just wanted to help me get this thing done. And it is tricky getting on cargo ships because you've kind of got to get permission off a lot of different bods. You need permission off the charterers, that might be CMA CGM, the owners, that might be some Greek company or something, the local agents, you need permission off them as well, and also the captain of the ship. If he doesn't want to let you on, he's not going to let you on. So I think also because I was setting a Guinness World Record, I was raising money for the charity WaterAid, and I was making a TV show for the first year of my travel, so I had, they knew that I'd been on TV, and my TV show was quite big in sort of Singapore and Hong Kong and places where I needed to get ships from. I think that'll put me in good stead. I think with Niall, because he's not raising money for charity, and he's just he doesn't really have a goal of doing anything in particular except traveling without flying.
He could have lied, though, couldn't he?
Yeah, he could have, I guess.
He could have said any old charity, you wouldn't know.
You know what he should have done? He should have just turned up at a particular place, where some shipping agency, and just turned up with a bottle of Johnny Walker Black Label and given it to the guy in charge. That's what he should have done.
Because the only person I remember, and you were growing up about this time, so it was about 1988, and I remember Michael Palin, the Monty Python guy, he first did Around the World in 80 Days, and it was a big show in my life because I was right at that peak time where I was, what was I then, 18, and I was just starting to sort of go off on holiday and go around the world and places on my own and stuff. And I remember seeing this, thinking how exciting it was. But I remember as well that he had so much difficulties, even with the might of the BBC behind him, trying to get sort of agreement to be on these ships. It must have been quite astonishing that you've done it on your own.
Yeah. Well, I had friends and family helping me out.
But it's not the BBC.
No, but I've got my own charms, I guess. I met Michael Palin last year actually at the Sheffield Documentary Festival. I got a photo with him, and I'm a huge fan of both Monty Python and also Around the World in 80 Days, which was a huge influence on me and what I did. I mean, I remember asking my mum when I was a kid, why doesn't he go to every country? And she just said, because that would be impossible, and he doesn't need to. He's just going around the world. And she showed me the globe and his route around the world. I went, oh, okay. And it always stuck at me, why didn't he go to every country? And I know now why he didn't go to every country, because it would have taken 4 years.
It'd be a long series.
Really difficult, yeah. Very long series.
So what did he say when you met him? Did he know you, or did you have to go up and say, do you realise I've done something better than you've done?
No, I didn't say that. He was doing a Q&A, and I just introduced myself and said thank you for the inspiration, and I'm now I'm the first person to go to every country in the world without flying. And he said, well done, and that. And then just afterwards, I just sort of met him at the stage door and said, it's all right if I get a selfie with you. And he's like, yeah, sure. So I've got a picture with him. But yeah, I mean, I didn't really get to sit down and chat with him about his adventures and stuff, which I'd really love to do, because I like to pick his brains. And one of the things that they had during his talk at the documentary festival was him meeting Carl Pinkerton.
Oh, okay.
Who does An Idiot Abroad? And I really love that show. But it was just kind of funny. They kind of met each other, and obviously Michael Palin's very enthusiastic where he goes places and he's kind of fascinated. Whereas Carl's just like, he just doesn't care. He's so cynical. And so it was kind of interesting seeing them together having a chat on video. And it was kind of like they'd obviously set it up this way, but it was kind of difficult, with them sort of going, well, yeah, we both travelled a bit. This is my book. They say, oh, this is my book. Yeah, should we swap books? And yeah, I thought that was quite funny. But I would like to actually sit down with Michael Palin at some point and then just have a good old chat about, there's things that happen on the road that, especially when you're travelling on your own. I know he was with a small camera crew, but it's pretty much a lonely road out there. And some of the things that happen to you and some of the things that you see, it's stuff that it's difficult for other people to relate to who haven't been in that same situation. I feel like that bit at the end of The Rings where they all just go to the pub and they're all like, yay, and they've got the beer.
Yes.
Except I don't have the other 3 people with me who have also been through something similar. So that's quite fun.
Well, you were saying before interviewing today, you were saying last night you had this tremendous thunderstorm. And freakily, I'm now recording with light flashing around me and thunderbolts going right across over my head. But I'm all right. I'm sort of, it's not affecting my connectivity. The Skype's working. Yeah. But last night you was in is it a hut or a shed with basically directly overhead? Is it a house?
I've got a house.
Oh, you're ruining the fantasy, Graham. I thought you was like half in a cave or something.
No, I put a flush toilet in the other day. Like flushes and everything. Whiffs a bit. I think there's a leak. I don't really know how to put flush toilets in, so I'm not a plumber.
So is it a proper house, as we would think of a house?
Yeah. Well, it's like, imagine like a cabin, a wooden cabin.
Why are you sounding indignant? Why are you sounding like I'm being rude to you somehow? You've got an island that you've named.
In a cave? Why aren't you suffering? Well, last night I had a thunderstorm. I'm here on the island on my own. I'm 20 minutes from the nearest town on a boat. So if the house gets struck by lightning and everything goes on fire, I'm kind of in a bit of trouble. And so I disconnected all the electricity, all the electrics, disconnected the solar panels, disconnected the VHF radio, and I was just standing there in the kitchen, sort of in my wellies. Out my underwear, just waiting for it to stop. And the lightning actually struck a tree, just about sort of 40 meters from the house, and the tree is now absolutely smashed in half by the lightning. So that's a bit of a worry. But that thing where you sort of you see the flash and you count the steps you hear the thunder.
Yeah.
That was kind of like. I was doing that, but it was a flash and thunder straight away. And I don't know if you've ever been that close to lightning, and it's happened to me a few times in my life. But if you're really close to lightning going off, it doesn't sound like a rumble. It sounds like a bang. It sounds like a bomb going off. It's just a bang, and you're like, whoa. And last night I definitely heard the sort of the bang, and then the of the tree as it fell over.
Is that exciting when that happens, or do you kind of go, really, I'm alone here. I've put myself in a position that I'm alone.
I don't know. I kind of find it exciting. I know that if anything did happen to me, everyone would just shake their heads and go, "What an idiot! What was he? What was he thinking?" But yeah, it's kind of exhilarating, and it's that feeling of, okay, what could possibly go wrong, and what do I need to do to stop it going wrong? And it was some of the journeys that I took on the Odyssey Expedition to every country in the world. I put my life on the line getting on these bloody things. I got on a fisherman's pirogue, a canoe in Senegal, which took me over to the Cape Verde Islands, and that was 4 days of sheer terror out on the open sea in a canoe.
I don't know why I laugh at your terror.
No, it's kind of funny now when I look back at it, but I wouldn't do it again. And no radio, no sat phone, no flares. I had to buy my own life jacket, which would have just kept me alive a little bit longer for the sharks to eat me if we'd gone overboard. If we had hit a storm, that would be it. There'd be no coming back from that. And then when we got to Cape Verde after 4 days, my mum had sent a fax to the authorities there telling them that I was coming, but she'd written it in English and didn't explain why I was doing it very well. And so they sort of read it as a tip-off that this people smuggler was coming to town with all these African fishermen that he was trying to smuggle into Cape Verde. And I ended up spending 6 days in jail along with the fishermen for that little escapade. And then when I got out of jail after 6 days, the fishermen were flown back to Senegal, and I was sort of stranded on this island for another 6 weeks trying to escape. And in the end, a nice German guy called Milan and a French guy called Sebastian came from one of the other islands in the Cape Verde chain, and they picked me up on their yacht, and I managed to get my passport back off the police, and we set off back to Africa together, which was really nice of them.
And did you know that you was only going to be in there for a week in jail? Were you already preparing to learn the harmonica because you thought you might be in there for years and years and years?
They didn't really tell us anything, really. I mean, one of the things that they didn't do habeas corpus. They didn't read us our rights. They didn't tell us what we were charged with or anything like that. And after 4 days in jail, they still hadn't notified my embassy or my family or anything. So one of the police officers, because it wasn't a jail, it was the holding cells of a police station. But it was pretty horrible. I mean, it was this tiny little room, and there were 11 of us in this room, and there was no bed to speak of. It was just a concrete floor and like a concrete shelf above the floor. So you had to sleep on the concrete, which was a bit uncomfortable. There was a police officer. He felt a bit sorry for me, and in the end, he let me use his mobile phone to send a text message to tell my family that where I was. And so I got this phone. He kind of gave it to me on the sly. He pulled me out the cell and took me to the other side of the room or whatever. And he
in a cake.
Gave me the phone.
Did he put it in a cake?
Yeah, kind of. Not quite, but yeah, almost. And he said, you've got 5 minutes. I'm like, okay. And at this point now, I've been in jail for like 4 days. Or after 4 days on the open sea, I still haven't had a shower, and I'm shaking. I'm like literally shaking, holding this damn phone, and it's all in Portuguese. And it was a model phone that I'd never used before. So I start writing this message saying, "Help, I've been arrested," and then I'm like, I can't remember anyone's number because you don't remember people's telephone numbers anymore, do you?
And international dialing codes and stuff.
Yeah, I can't send a text message to my parents' home number. But then somewhere at the back of my head, I thought that I might be able to remember my brother's mobile phone number because he hadn't changed it for years. And I just punched it in and fingers crossed. And then about an hour later, I was called upstairs into the police station because the holding cells were in the basement. And I was put on the phone, and on the phone was the British embassy or the British representative saying, "What the hell is going on?" And I had to explain the situation. He's like, "Oh, it's okay. We'll get you out of there. Don't worry. Just stay where you are." And then within 2 days, they had me out.
So the text message did go to your brother then? It didn't end up at like Domino's Pizzas or somewhere?
Oh God, I'd still probably be in jail if that was the case. No, I did manage to get out, which was good. But then whenever the police saw me over the preceding few weeks, they'll sort of give me like, sort of, what the hell are you doing here? Sort of looks, and I was like, I'm trying to go to every country without flying. But I didn't really expect lightning to strike twice, but then I was thrown in jail for 6 days again when I went to Congo. I just arrived in Brazzaville, the capital, and I think I learned a very important life lesson there, which was, no matter how tired and frustrated and short of temper you're feeling at any particular time, if you're presented with an authority figure, just smile, just be nice, just do what they say. If they want to check all your luggage and go through all your things, just let them, and do it with a smile on your face, because I was in a bad mood and they wanted to go through all my tapes and I was quite dismissive of them, and it was just a police roadblock like you see a lot of the time in Africa, and I thought it wouldn't be any big deal, and possibly because of my attitude, I spent 6 days in a cell in Brazzaville. Again, it was a holding cell in a police station, but this one was a bit worse. Usually when you go taken into a cell, they take your shoelaces and they take your belt in case you want to hang yourself or something. In this case, they took my shoes and socks. They took my top. They took my belt. They took my glasses and my hat. So I was in this cell with some mosquitoes, and all I had on were my underwear and my jeans, and the toilet was just horrific. I don't think it had ever been cleaned since it had been installed. And it was a squat toilet.
It's lucky they took your glasses off. You wouldn't be able to see it.
Well, yeah. Well, I could smell it. So I ended up not eating for 6 days because I didn't want to have to use the toilet. And it wasn't until the day I got out that I was taken to the honorary consul's house, and we had some Baileys and some pizza. So that was I think after not eating for that long, you're supposed to have some milk and bread or something. But no, I had Baileys and a pizza. So if you think about it, posh milk and bread.
So your tapes, they were like film tapes. They weren't like Kylie Minogue albums or something. What were they sort of interested in?
No, they weren't interested in me Kylie Minogue albums. They were just interested. When I got pulled over, they went through a few of my tapes, and I can play them back on the screen on my video camera. And I was playing through them, and they're saying, what was this? What are these tapes? And I'm saying, it's just my holiday. I'm on holiday. I'm traveling down to South Africa. Here's my ticket to South Africa. Here's my visa for Angola and Democratic Republic of Congo. I'm moving on from Republic of Congo. So many countries with the same name. Ridiculous. Anyway, I'm moving on from here. Tomorrow I'm getting the boat over. I've got a friend to meet. Here's his number. Blah blah blah. So I had all the paperwork, and they started looking at the tape, and there was some footage of me talking to this guy Steve, who was a Nigerian guy who worked in Gabon down at the docks, and he owned a fishmonger's store. And when I was in Gabon, I was trying to get to the small ex-Portuguese colony of Sao Tome and Principe, and which is right on the equator. And I ended up staying in Gabon for about 3 weeks, and I met this Belgian guy who had a sailboat, and he said if I could get him a GPS, he'll go over with me. So this fisherman, the guy Steve with his fish store, he took me out in his car, driving around the capital of Gabon, Libreville, for the day. This is just how lovely people are, and to try and find a GPS unit. And we found one in a sort of camping shop in the end. Then we went back to the port, and I set off on my journey. Anyway, I filmed all this, and just happened to be that the part of the footage that the police watched at the side of the road was of Steve. And they decided that it wasn't Steve. They thought that it was the amusingly named Ali Bongo, after the 8th children's magician.
Yes, I remember him.
Yes. Well, he's now the new president of Gabon. He took over from his father, Omar Bongo, who had been in charge.
Not the 80s magician bloke.
No. This is a guy called. He's from Gabon. I mean, right. He's Gabonese. his father was the old president for 40 years. He died of extreme old age, and then, lo and behold, because presidency is the worst political system you can possibly ever have anywhere in the world, except maybe fascism, which isn't that far away. You know, instead of having an election where, I don't know, some other person gets elected, it was his son, because it's not a monarchy or anything, but that happens a lot in countries around the world that have presidents. You seem to get a lot of, even in America, you had Bush Jr., didn't you? And you know, at the moment in Kenya, the Uhuru Kenyatta is now president of Kenya. You get a lot of family dynasties like this. So anyway, they thought that this was an interview with the new president of Gabon, whose election took place while I was in Gabon. And I was like, no. And they're like, oh, you're a journalist. I'm like, no. And like, are you a spy? And I'm like, no, I'm not. What are you talking about? This is Steve. You know, I'm trying to talk in my bad pidgin French. These guys who, you know, French is the official language or it's an official language in Congo, but it's, you know, most people will speak their own native language. I mean, they don't necessarily speak French day to day. So they don't speak much French. I don't speak much French, and we're trying to communicate, and it's just, the whole thing is just a nightmare. And I lost my rag and said, oh, you know, through the tapes and said, just watch them all. I don't care. Watch them all. And, you know, sat down at the side of the road. And they didn't like that. They didn't like that. So, yeah. Something similar happened to me a few times on the way, where police officers pulled me over and wanted to look for my tapes. And after that experience, I was very cheerful. I was very jovial. Smile. My advice, just keep smiling.
Wow, what a guest Graham is. And don't be worried, we haven't cut it short, but we've had so much to go through, so many stories, so many anecdotes. I felt it was sensible to split it into 2 parts. So if you're interested in Graham Hughes, the life he's leading on Ginger Island, and a lot of the other sort of incidents and accidents, and of course, how he can actually join up his dots, then listen tomorrow when we will bring you episode 117 of Join Up Dots, or as we like to call it, part 2 with Graham Hughes. See you tomorrow.
David doesn't want you to become a faded version of the brilliant self you were once to become. So he's put together an amazing guide for you called the 8 Pieces of Advice That Every Successful Entrepreneur Practices, including the 2 that changed his life. Head over to joinupdots.com to download this amazing guide for free, and we'll see you tomorrow on Join Up Dots.